Today, we're diving into a really fascinating report from the Texas Progressive Policy Institute. It gets into a huge challenge for political campaigns. How do you actually build deep, meaningful trust with African American voters? The kind of trust that gets people to the polls on Election Day.
And this quote, wow, it just gets right to the heart of the whole thing. You hear campaigns talk about momentum all the time, right? But this report argues that it's often just an illusion. If you don't have a real foundation of trust, that momentum can hide some major problems that you won't see until it's way too late.
So that brings us to our first big idea, the momentum myth. We're going to dig into why a campaign's own confidence, which is usually fueled by what looks like a ton of early support, can actually turn into its biggest weakness.
I mean, think about it. A huge, enthusiastic rally in August, that's great for TV, great for morale. But on its own, it doesn't mean much. The report is super clear about this. That initial excitement just vanishes if it isn't backed up with consistent, believable engagement. And in a close race, it all comes down to the margins. A 2 or 3% drop in turnout from a key group like African American voters isn't just a small hiccup. It can be the entire ballgame. It can literally flip the result from a win to a loss. That razor-thin margin brings us to the report's main point, and it's a big one. Alignment isn't turnout. There is a world of difference between a voter agreeing with your platform and that same voter actually getting in their car and casting a ballot for you. They are not the same thing. This slide just lays it out so perfectly. On one hand, you have high alignment. African American voters consistently agree with a certain party's platform. But on the other hand, you have the actual decision to vote. And as the report shows, that decision isn't automatic. It's conditional. Now, this is such a crucial shift in thinking. The report calls it conditional participation. The idea is that when a voter decides to stay home, it's not usually because they're apathetic or tuned out. No, it's often a totally rational choice based on their own past experiences. They're weighing the risks before they decide to act.
So that naturally leads to the next question, right? If voting is a choice based on a risk assessment, what are the questions voters are asking themselves to figure out if a campaign is even worth that risk?
Well, the report boils it down to these 3 key tests. First, do you see us accurately? And that's about more than just numbers. It's about understanding a community's values. Second, do you show up consistently, not just a month before the election? And the third one, which might be the most important, do you return when nothing is at stake? Coming back when you don't need anything, that's the ultimate proof of a real relationship.
Okay, so all of this is building toward a really powerful metaphor for how this all works. The report wants us to stop thinking about trust as a feeling. Instead, think of it as the real, hard currency of any political campaign. Trust isn't some vague, fuzzy feeling. It's tangible. It's a record. Voters are keeping track of a campaign's behavior over time. Every single interaction, every promise you keep, every promise you break, it all gets logged. Because voters have a long memory, they are absolutely keeping score. They see the patterns of engagement, they remember who actually follows through, and, this is so important, they track absence. They definitely notice who vanishes the day after the election. And that brings us to the core metaphor. Trust operates like a ledger. It's simple. Every authentic, positive interaction you have is a deposit. Every broken promise, every bit of pandering, every long absence, that's a withdrawal. And that leads to this idea of trust debt. You know, campaigns understand financial debt, but this is different. It's the deficit you create from making withdrawal after withdrawal without making any deposits. And for a lot of communities, that trust account is already deeply in the red before a new campaign even starts. So, how do you make deposits instead of withdrawals? It's all about authenticity, not pandering. And this slide shows the difference perfectly. Authenticity is about being consistent, being self-aware. Pandering, on the other hand, is just a performance. It's using slang you wouldn't normally use, or borrowing someone else's experience. Voters can spot that a mile away.
Okay, so we've identified the problem, we know the currency is trust, so let's get into the solution that the report offers up. It's a very specific turnout-first plan called the 80-60-40 strategy.
So it starts with 80%. This is your baseline. This is the chunk of the African American electorate that right off the bat already aligns with your party's platform. That's the group you're starting with.
Next up, 60%. This is your turnout floor. This is the absolute, non-negotiable minimum percentage of that aligned group that has to vote for you to win. Your entire strategy should be built around hitting this number.
And finally, 40%.
This is what the report calls your margin protection. It's the buffer you build into your turnout goal. It protects you from last-minute attacks or unexpected shifts in the electorate. It's what makes a victory solid, not just lucky.
So, why does a framework like this matter so much? Because at the end of the day, preparation beats confidence every single time. Having a real plan to earn trust and turn out your base is so much more valuable than just crossing your fingers and hoping that momentum will be enough.
And the report leaves us with this final, powerful question to think about. It really gets to the long-term consequences here. If a community's trust account is overdrawn again and again, what's the real cost of letting it go completely bankrupt?